one of the reasons why it's so challenging for us to understand consciousness is because ultimately it is beyond a mental concept. And most of us have been conditioned since childhood to the point where we basically do not have the ability to shut off our thoughts. The thoughts, involuntary thoughts, compulsive thoughts just emerge. We most of the time, sometimes we have the choice what we can think about, but most of the time we're just thinking. And what has happened is that consciousness essentially has, or the mind has essentially absorbed all consciousness. And when it absorbs all consciousness, it turns it into a mind-made thing. It turns it into ego. It turns it into about me. And that's the challenge when you talk about consciousness. So to understand consciousness, it's important that we move beyond the mind. It's deeper than the mind. And when your consciousness only takes you to the point of identifying with your mind-made sense of self, it misses the point of, and also leads to frustration and pain and suffering in your life. So the consciousness, when it's free, when you actually take a moment and just become still within and move beyond the thought level, what you will begin to discover is that you are awareness, you are that consciousness. And you separate, there becomes a separation where you as the awareness are now able to look at your thoughts, where you're able to see your thoughts. Literally, it's quite phenomenal actually, that you're seeing the thoughts and the activities of the mind as something that is happening to you, but it's not who you are. And so the more you can come to that point of absolutely inner stillness, and if you could, in the beginning, maybe it's only a second, 2 or 3 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, and then maybe even longer, a minute or 2 minutes, you can just become completely aware, where thoughts are at a minimal, where essentially you're just aware and you're very present. And this is when I say, this is who you are at the very core. That's the, for those who remember, we talked about the baby you, and what you were when you were 2 days old, what you were when you were 15, what you were when you were 40, and what you were when you're 65. I mean, maybe you're only 30, or whatever age you're at. But reality is that the only thing that remains the same. We talked about the science of it, the physics of it. We talked about the thoughts you have, the way you look. Everything has changed, except that what has remained the same and has remained consistent the same is consciousness. And consciousness is that in which all experiences occur. So we talked about experiences being anything you can perceive with your 5 senses: thoughts, dreams, imaginations. And when you become still within, and you just come to that point of just completely aware, without thoughts, without the emotions, you're just completely aware, what you begin to discover is this richness within you, a presence within you that is essentially you. With that presence within you, the more you drift into an awareness of that presence, the more you feel the peace. And the more you feel the peace, then you will feel a sense of joy, and that joy leads to love. And what you will discover is what Jesus said: the kingdom of God is within you. You will discover that ultimately you are connected to the very source of life. You are connected to that infinite wisdom that is beyond your intellect. Now, I know this sounds like crazy stuff to many people, but when you experience it, if you have experiences, it completely transforms your life. It transforms the way you think. It transforms the way you feel. And it's really the path toward freedom from all that inner suffering, such as guilt, shame, and all the things of the past.